Our members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Thou members of Parliament and Ministers of State with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and fully served, that good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people, the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to sweet the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, item 2 on the other paper, correction of votes and proceedings. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker, last Friday I wasn't here, but I've served notice and indeed also written and submitted a leave of absence to the Speaker. It was done before I left, and the Speaker indeed spoke to me Thursday. And so it's strange to me to find myself and my name as having been marked absent without permission. That certainly cannot be, because as I said, during Thursday, I served notice to the Speaker at a preceding meeting that has submitted a leave of absence to him. And so it is strange that my name is situated where it is situated. I want the table officers to do what is needful.
Very well. Page 10. Page 11. Rob members, the votes and proceedings of Friday, 3rd July 2020. Yeah, sorry, Honorable Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I noticed that okay, Mr. Speaker, sorry, I'll see what I'm looking for. I'll see what I'm looking for now. Thank you.
The The voting proceedings of Friday, the 3rd of July, is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. We have 4 official reports. We'll take them, 3 official reports. We'll take them one after the other. The official report of Wednesday, the 18th of March, 2020. Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections, the official report of Wednesday, 18th of March, 2020 is hereby adopted as a true record of the proceedings. The official report for Thursday, 19th of March, 2020. Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections, the official report of Thursday, 19th of March, 2020 is hereby adopted as a true record of the proceedings. Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. Any corrections? Official report of Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. In the absence of any corrections, the official report of Tuesday, 16 June 2020 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. The final one is on Tuesday, June 17th, 2020. Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections, the official report of Wednesday, June 17th, 2020 is hereby adopted as a true record of the proceedings. Item 3. My attention has just been drawn to a statement submitted by the Honorable Chairman of the Select Committee on Trade and Industry. Yes, I will invite the Honorable Member to read his speech. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I'm supposed to give the statement on behalf of my Honorable Minister, Ms. Sheila Ekubuchi.
In respect of what?
My Honorable Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration.
Well, I'm not aware of any such thing. There's no such thing before me. Kindly hold on.
Oh, yes.
We'll proceed with the statement by the Honorable Member for Afija Kwabre, while they sort out the one by Minister for the Minister for Foreign Affairs later. So far, there's nothing before me here. So, Honorable Chairman of the Committee on Trade, you will read your statement now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make this important statement, which actually happens to be because of the AFCTA, which we launched its head office in Accra last year. Right, Honorable Speaker, let me start first by supporting the Actually, this was going to be a supporting statement to Foreign Affairs, so we can skip that. Mr. Speaker, at the launch of the operational phase of the AFCTA held in Niamey, Niger, on 7 July 2019, the 12th Extraordinary Summit of AU Heads of States and Government decided that 7 July of each year be designated as the African Integration Day, without it being a holiday to commemorate the operationalization of the AFCTA agreement and popularize economic integration across the continent as a lever of inclusive, sustainable.
Hold on. There appears to be a mix-up. Now, your statement refers to the statement made by the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. It's now being brought to my attention. So I think we will reverse the order. Let the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs make the statement before your supporting statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Deputy. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the intervention that you have made. But to suggest that in that regard, what the honorable member has just done should not be allowed to stand. It should be expunged for the Deputy Minister to make the statement first on behalf of the ministry, and then his own contribution will follow thereafter.
Very well. I so direct. Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me start first by thank you for the opportunity to deliver this statement on the occasion of the Africa Integration Day, which falls today, 7th July 2020. In rising to speak, Honorable Speaker, I do so on behalf of the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Madam Shelley Ayoko Butri, who is also the Member of Parliament for the Anyas Ruchum constituency. Mr. Speaker, at the 12th Ordinary Summit of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union on 7 July 2019, it was decided that the 7th July of every year be designated as the Africa Integration Day to commemorate the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, as well as promote economic integration across the continent. The essence of the Africa Integration Day is to celebrate the progress made in the implementation of the Africa Integration Agenda, including the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement as its achievements. It is also intended to galvanize and mobilize Africans within the continent and abroad towards the accelerated and full operationalization of the ideals and objectives of the African Economic Community as enshrined in the Abuja Treaty. Mr. Speaker, the Abuja Treaty, adopted by the African Union in 1991, which came into effect in May 1994, sets out a roadmap for achieving an economic and monetary union in Africa through a gradual process of coordination, harmonization, and progressive integration of regional economic communities over 6 stages spanning 34 years. Whilst the treaty has been criticized for its ambitious targets, it is reassuring that significant progress has been made to date in meeting its targets. Mr. Speaker, Africa's efforts towards an integrated continent reached a significant milestone with the coming into force of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. At the cross-country level, there appears to be a robust correlation between growth and trade. Despite massive increase in Africa's total mechanized merchandise exports during the past half-century, reaching nearly $500 billion in 2018, the continent's share of world export is still relatively low. Currently, statistics indicate that regional trade offers an easier strategy to boosting Africa's trade and external trade, which is subject to greater competitive pressures and more persuasive non-tariff barriers. Mr. Speaker, Ghana views the effective implementation of the African Continental Free Trade as critical to the development of the continent and knows that it is consistent with the development aspirations and policies of the country. Hence, the need to pursue this agenda with focus and passion. The African Continental Free Trade will increase Africa's global trade and facilitate diversification away from commodity exports to the export of value-added finished and semi-finished products. It will contribute to building regional economic infrastructure, fostering food and energy security, generating jobs for the increasing number of young people, alleviating poverty, and delivering shared prosperity. African leaders, therefore, determined not to allow the COVID-19 pandemic to delay our aspirations to enhance continental trade for our development, we remain resolute in implementing the African Continental Free Trade. In that regard, Ghana is working with the African Union Commission to ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Secretariat begins its operation here in Accra. Mr. Speaker, given the plethora of challenges that confront African countries within the context of economic integration, implementing boosting inter-African trade, which consists of 7 thematic action areas, is key to accelerating the entire integration process. Thankfully, the Ministry of Trade and Industry is taking steps towards, together with relevant ministries, to project its activities that will boost intra-African trade in the areas of trade policy, trade information, trade-related infrastructure, trade finance, trade facilitation, productive capacity, and factor market integration. The ministry is also working towards harnessing the full benefit of the African Continental Free Trade by determining complementary measures in the areas of investment, production, trade facilitation, trade-related infrastructure, import defense, as well as strong mechanism for communication, advocacy, and outreach around the African Continental Free Trade Instrument. Right Honorable Speaker, I therefore wish to conclude, Mr. Speaker, by urging this august House to take interest in the African Continental Free Trade and to support government to ensure its effective implementation for the interests of Ghana and the continent. It is the hope of government that the observance of this Africa Integration Day today will renew our commitment to the African integration agenda, which has been one of the cardinal foreign policy objectives of Ghana since independence. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your attention.
Very well. The Honorable Chairman may also read a supporting statement before I invite comments. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make a contribution to such a brilliant statement being made by my colleague. Right Honorable Speaker, let me start first by supporting the statement made on the floor of Parliament by Honorable Mohammed Habibu Tijani, a Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, on the maiden commemoration of the African Integration Day. Mr. Speaker, at the launch of the operational phase of AFTA, held in Niamey, Niger, on 7 July 2019, the 12th Extraordinary Summit of AU heads and states and government decided that 7 July of each year be designated as the African Integration Day, without it being a holiday to commemorate the operationalization of AFTA agreement and popularize economic integration across the continent as a lever of inclusive sustainable development. Mr. Speaker, the following are the key objectives for the commemoration of African Integration Day. 1, to celebrate the progress made in the implementation of the African integration agenda, including AfCFTA and its achievement, which is emphasized to increase intra-African trade and investment, generate economic growth, create more job opportunities for millions of Africans, and provide opportunities for women and youth entrepreneurs. 2, to disseminate and explain the importance and challenges of regional integration in Africa, including the status of nation in Africa and in the progress made, and create new positive mindset, both on the continent and in the diaspora. 3, galvanize and mobilize Africans within the continent and abroad. 4, the subsequent steps towards the accelerated and full operationalization of the ideals and objectives envisioned in the treaty establishment, the African Economic Community, that is the Abuja Treaty. Mr. Speaker, the AfCFTA aims to increase Africans' presence in the global economy by improving intra-African trade flows and attracting foreign investment. The AfCFTA promises significant gains for the continent in respect of welfare gains, GDP growth, employment, and intra-African trade growth, and a reduction of Africa's trade deficit. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the elimination of tariffs could boost trade in Africa by between 15 to 25% in the medium term. Once operational, the agreement is expected to create 3 trillion economic bloc, connecting 1.3 billion people across Africa, which will make it the largest trading bloc since the World Trade Organization was formed in 1994. Specifically, for Ghana, the agreement is expected to open up the African market for key manufacturing companies in the country to support export sales, whilst attracting foreign direct investment across the value chain and different parts in the manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic led to the postponement of all the AU meetings, which were scheduled from March to May 2020, to finalize critical technical components, including schedules of tariff concessions for trade in goods, rules of origin, and schedules of specific commitments for trade in services. Consequently, trading under AfCFTA, which was expected to kickstart from 1st July 2020, has been put on hold, and AU will announce a new date after a review of the situation. Mr. Speaker, it has been observed that demand for Africa's commodity exports has plummeted and their prices tumbled since the advent of COVID-19. Moreover, global and regional supply chains have broken down, causing fear for food insecurity and critically needed medical supplies. African countries must drift away from production value chains structured around extraction and give premium to approaches that foster diversified industrialization and structural transformation in Africa to create decent jobs for accelerated, inclusive economic growth and development in Africa. Mr. Speaker, although the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating, it has arguably created a pressing need to reduce Africa's high trade dependence on non-African states. It has provided opportunities for local production of essential products, particularly pharmaceuticals, PPEs, garment and textiles, food and beverages, etc., etc. This will enhance production for exports of a variety of products, both for African and global markets. Given the potential of AfCFTA to serve as real economic engine at the continental level and significantly mitigate the economic consequences of COVID-19, African leaders must maintain the momentum towards its implementation. Mr. Speaker, although the delay in implementation implies these benefits will not be seen in the short term, it gives Ghana and other African countries ample time to accelerate investment in critical infrastructure that will reduce the cost of producing goods locally and improve the competitiveness of local manufacturers. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that Ghana's role as the host of AFTA Secretariat has not been affected by COVID-19. Ghana has discharged her obligations to ensure that the smooth operationalization of AFTA Secretariat and is ready to host the Secretariat. African regional integration is vital for socio-economic development of Ghana and other member states because of the small population and market size of their economies. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the commemoration of the African Integration Day must inspire, energize, and speed up efforts of the African countries towards the implementation of AFTA to realize a long-held vision of economic self-determination of the continent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Yes, honourable members, any contributions? Yes, honourable minority leader. Oh, the Pan-African member is behind you. Let me give him the opportunity first. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Indeed, we should have been celebrating this day with pomp and pageantry. Unfortunately, the pandemic has affected everything. But this has been the dream of integrating the African continent by the forefathers, led by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So, fortunately, the rest of Africa recognized this contribution that Ghana had made in the fight for independence for the whole continent. And so they rewarded us with hosting the headquarters of this institution here, the AFCFTA. And therefore, we as Ghanaians must take opportunity of the day to organize and sensitize our population, and particularly the trading sections of our communities, so that they know and prepare for the benefits of the AFCFTA headquarters here. I know that the government had rolled out programs of meetings, various sectors, and preparing the ground for the takeoff. But again, due to the pandemic, these issues have been swept under the carpet. But I still urge that the communities that are involved, manufacturers, people who are in shipping, people who are in all kinds of businesses that will integrate Africa as a trading bloc against the rest of the world. It is important. In doing so, we must do the preliminary things. Those who are into manufacturing must look at their packaging, look at the standards that we observe, so that whatever goods we are producing and want to take advantage of this integration, they are of standard and quality. Indeed, it is important that every year we should focus on one aspect of this integration and celebrate it and draw attention to the whole of Africa about the fact that we need to integrate our economies. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to comment on the statement ably made by the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Habib Tijani, on the Africa Integration Day of 7th July 2020. And Mr. Speaker, whilst it was celebrating, regrettably, Africa is still at the crossroads in its quest and effort to integrate and to use the facilitation of trade and investment to spur the growth and development of the African continent. Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss the subject, we need to be mindful of the fact that the less developed or underdeveloped African countries may suffer negatively the consequence of trade liberalization, particularly to the poorest countries. Mr. Speaker, some statistics may be useful. 2017, intra-African trade was at 16.6%, compared to Europe, 68%, Asia, 59%. And Mr. Speaker, not going too far, just in our own West African sub-region, what is the level of trade between Ghana and Nigeria? If you take, for instance, Nigeria, Dangote Cement is in Ghana, flourishing well. I recall the kind of incentives and support we gave that company. The essence of AFTEC is for companies and countries to help each other and to trade together. If you go to Nigeria, they still have listed communities that cannot enter Nigeria from Ghana. How do you promote free Africa trade with this attitude and with this behavior? So, Mr. Speaker, my first suggestion is that there is still fragmentation in Africa. We need to eliminate monopolies in Africa. We need to improve infrastructure in Africa. We need to harmonize regulations in Africa. And more importantly, we need to avoid protectionism. Even as we speak this morning, the US and China are experiencing some war of trade. At the heart of it is protectionism. That will not be good for Africa, and that will not be good for free continental African trade. Mr. Speaker, boosting intra-African trade facilitation, even in Ghana, I have repeatedly suggested that even customs must work 24 hours in Ghana, and every day, 24/7. They must work Monday to Friday, 24 hours, because our measure of ease of doing business, the time duration, the transaction cost of clearance of goods and services, the transaction cost even of clearance itself is a measure of our ease of doing business. So, Mr. Speaker, I commend the maker of the statement. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, this was done under the NDC government. And I believe that for the good of Ghana, that policy trend must change. The Ministry of Finance is not and should not, even by WTO rules, be responsible for trade facilitation. It is a function and duty of the Minister for Trade. But in Ghana today, you see a conflict. Who is in charge of the management of the port? The Minister of Finance's primary role is revenue. Trade facilitation and the WTO rules must necessarily be under the Minister for Trade. So when you have some of this engagement, you need collaboration. It should take the Minister for Trade and the Minister of Finance to work. That is why currently we have a crisis at the port. No synergies, no harmonies. It is about who is responsible and who is in charge. So, Mr. Speaker, Africa is indeed at the crossroads. We need to work towards shared prosperity for all. We need to enhance trade and investment in the African continent. But, Mr. Speaker, only recently, it was announced by the French government, I believe in Paris, of the UEMO countries signing on to a new currency. Yet, some African countries had agreed, including Ghana, to a single currency called the ECO. How come that group, the CFA group, have already moved away from their commitment to a common currency? We are talking of a single free trade area, which will be the largest in the world if it works well. But already the French-speaking countries have drifted away, and they have drifted to sign a common currency pact on a different currency. So, Mr. Speaker, sometimes when you say we should celebrate Africa and its prosperity and celebrate what the minister have referred to in his statement after, it gives much for concern. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we should work towards hope and work towards prosperity. So once again, I want to commend the maker of the statement. The other time I made a suggestion to government. If you take the Ghana Exim Bank, which was established under the NDC, I have repeatedly said that the chairperson of that institution should be the Minister for Trade, rightly, because the Minister for Trade is a ministry responsible for the economy, industry, SMEs, and others. But when you displace a Minister for Trade and go and add it to the burdensome function of a Minister of Finance, Revenue and Expenditure, you deny the Trade Minister the opportunity to grow the economy, to stimulate the economy, and to invest in Ghanaian entrepreneurship. With these comments, Mr. Speaker, I support, not too warm in my heart, the celebration of Africa Integration Day. We are not there yet. It's a tortuous path, but African leaders must demonstrate true, real commitment to this. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I'm Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me also rise to make a few comments on the statement delivered to Parliament on the occasion of the Africa Integration Day. On this day, the 7th of July, 2020. Mr. Speaker, the Africa Integration Day, as the Deputy Minister has noted, is intended to galvanize and mobilize Africans within the continent and in the diaspora towards the accelerated and full operationalization of the ideals and objectives of the Africa Economic Community as enshrined in the Abuja Treaty. Speaker, the Homecoming Summit held last year in Ghana was indeed tailored to provide a platform to reinvigorate this idea. Speaker, it was well patronized, and when we all thought that the cycle plan for this year was going to really elevate the effort to another level, the coronavirus this year has put spanners in the works, which was begun last year. Mr. Speaker, it is sad to relate to this unhappy but factual statement which the Deputy Minister related to, that, and I want to quote, that despite a massive increase in Africa's total merchandise exports during the past half century, reaching nearly $500 billion United States dollars in 2018, the continent's share of world exports is still relatively low. Mr. Speaker, again, the merchandise exported from Africa is dominated, rather unfortunately, by natural resources in their natural state. Cocoa, timber, gold, bauxite, petroleum, natural gas, tourism. Mr. Speaker, these are resources in their natural state. And even though we should be happy that exports during the past half century has increased to about $500 billion in 2018, we must appreciate the fact that we're not talking about manufactured goods, not services, not ICT, which are rather high earning. Mr. Speaker, we keep bemoaning the fact that even though we produce these merchandise, we are not in the position to even set the world market price of the products that we produce in the continent. Which is why, Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to look within to put value on the produces that come from Africa. Mr. Speaker, the salvation lies in the new paradigm that is boosting intra-African trade, which consists of the 7 thematic action areas that the minister has related to. Mr. Speaker, first we must deal with the trade must emphasize on food security. We must also emphasize on job creation, the appropriate infrastructure that will boost production and productivity. And here we're talking about energy, and Speaker, not any energy, but energy that is accessible and affordable. We're talking about rail and road transport, air connectivity. Mr. Speaker, the other day when I had to go to the capital city of Chad, in N'Djamena, I had to fly to London to connect to N'Djamena via Belgium. Mr. Speaker, the second time I had to go by Ethiopian Airlines to Ethiopia before connecting to Chad. Now we have A-Sky, and you board A-Sky from Ghana, from Accra to Lomé. It doesn't take you directly to N'Djamena, but then you have then to submit yourself to some trotro operations from Lomé. Then it takes you to Cotonou, from Cotonou to Gabon, from Gabon to Yaoundé, Yaoundé to Abuja, and Abuja to N'Djamena. So you set off early morning at 6 a.m., you get to N'Djamena, which journey should not last, Mr. Speaker, more than 2.5 hours or 3 hours maximum. You have to spend about 15 hours to get to N'Djamena. So, Mr. Speaker, we should, if we want to really boost trade, also ensure that air connectivity is easy and available. Speaker, if we want to promote trade and industry, water availability, potable water availability, and the technological advancement to really boost our labor force is also very important. Mr. Speaker, the minority leader related to trade barriers, and it related to what is happening in Nigeria. Today, our colleagues, our sisters and brothers from Nigeria want to penetrate Ghanaian markets. But conversely, they are refusing to accept produces from Ghana. And indeed, apart from the listed produces, commodities that they insist they are not going to allow into the Nigerian economy, you have physical barriers that they mount, Mr. Speaker, between the Nigeria-Benin border. If one travels by road, before you get to Lagos, you have to cross 27 barriers, 27 physical road barriers to get to Lagos. How are you going to promote trade in that manner? Between our own western border, the western region, to Abidjan. Mr. Speaker, there are 17 barriers. How do you promote trade with this? How do you promote trade with this? So the African heads of state and governments will have to be told that we need really to get rid of these barriers if indeed we are minded to promote trade. Finally, the issue about the promotion of single currency. The dichotomy between the Anglophones and the Francophones can't any longer be tolerated. The Anglophones have been given some obstacles to surmount in this convergence criteria that we are supposed to submit ourselves to. And they recline to the UEMOA fraternity, and that their economy is heavily foundation and indeed supported by France. So they don't need any convergence criteria. But we in the Anglophone community will have to submit ourselves to the convergence criteria, and we have primary criteria and secondary criteria, 10 of them. Today, now we have a mixture, 6 of them in general, in total. And Mr. Speaker, it's difficult. 2 years ago, the heads then agreed that those of them, any country that was able to achieve 4 out of the 6 could introduce the ECO. But who to build the cart is the difficulty. Because oftentimes it's been Nigeria that has been at the head of the achievement. Ghana these days is coming up strongly, but sometimes we lost. The previous administration, they were trying their best. And Speaker, in the 10 criteria, our best performance at the time was about 2 out of 10. And indeed, in 2016, we slipped on all and scored 0 out of 10. Gambia scores 2 out of 10. Sierra Leone and Liberia. How are we to integrate our economies if we strictly apply these rules? So, Mr. Speaker, we have to have a second look at these convergence criteria, and the heads of state will have to come with a better formula to move us, that is the Anglophones, from where we are as individual economies, so that the Speaker will be able to talk about better integration of our economies rather than the theoretical concepts that we are always relating to whenever we come to talk about the integration of African economy. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the space allowed.
That brings us to the end of statement time. The commencement of public business. Item 4. Presentation of papers. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if I may present the paper on behalf of the Minister for Communications with respect to 4A and 4A Roman number 1 and Roman number 2.
Very well. Item number 4A, I.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT for the year 2018. Budget performance report in respect of the Ministry of Communications for the period January to December 2019.
You didn't wait for me to refer them. The papers are duly presented. I refer them to the Committee on Communication for consideration and report. Item B.
Speaker, as I said, if I may present that paper as well for the General Children and Social Protection Minister, and also for Western Housing. The local government deputy minister is here, so he will do for 4D. Mr. Speaker, I want to do 4B, 4C, and 4E.
Very well. 4B.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection for the year 2019.
The paper is duly presented. It's referred to the Committee on Gender to consider and report. Item 4C.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the Ministry of Works and Housing for the year 2019.
Paper is duly presented, is referred to the Committee on Works and Housing to consider and report. Item 4D.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the Lejokuku Municipal Assembly for the year 2019.
The paper is duly presented, is referred to the Committee on Local Governance to consider and report. Item 4E.
Budget performance report in respect of the Ministry of Railways Development for the period January to December 2019.
The report is duly presented. It's referred to the Committee on Roads and Transport to consider and report. Honorable Leader, are we ready to do item 5?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would present the Security Intelligence Agency's Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, before then, this bill came to be laid in the House on May 1st, 2020. So I want to seek the indulgence of the House, Speaker, to withdraw the one that was laid on the 1st of May, 2020.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, precisely the reason I was on my feet, because I'm aware that this matter was referred to committee, and I'm aware that the committee met and considered it. So if you now list it as first reading, that is not the acceptable practice and procedure, and we should follow the process to withdraw what was earlier laid. Then he can go forward to do the first reading of it. And because I'm aware, when the committee was meeting, I almost participated even in the exercise. But you laid before you made the application. I heard you. I'm in the chamber. And the first thing is to withdraw. And listen.
Will the leaders address me and...
Mr. Speaker, so let him do what is proper. He should withdraw, and I don't want to withdraw. It went to committee. I the committee and the committee chair.
Yes, Honorable Majority, the leave is granted you to withdraw the
Yes,
one
Speaker,
earlier.
that indeed is the application that I made. Clearly, the minority leader was not following what I was saying. I said before we do that, because the bill first came to be laid on the 1st of May, 2020, I want to seek the indulgence of the Speaker and that of the House to withdraw. And if that is granted, then the presentation will be made in respect of this. The Speaker, that is at least what I said.
I've granted you leave to withdraw and file a new one. Yes, Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know that a minister came to lay this bill. If you want to withdraw, it is that minister who has to come and withdraw it. Because we cannot just ride on the back of the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs to come and withdraw a bill that a minister has laid. So if truly the minister wants to withdraw it, it is that minister that needs to be here. Because this is a very important bill, and the minister did lay it. Let the majority of the minister get that minister to come and withdraw it. Because since we started, you've been virtually doing the work of almost all the ministers. Where are they? Mr. Majority Leader, let them come and do their own business. But for laying of those other papers, yes. But this one, you want to withdraw and relay. Please get the minister to come and do that. That's a more proper thing to do. And you know that, Mr. Majority Leader. Than you seeking permission to withdraw it on his behalf and relay other paper on his behalf. Get the minister to come and do that, because he laid the paper, and probably he may even give us why he wants to withdraw it.
Yes, Honorable.
Speaker, first of all, if a bill comes to be laid in this House, the House takes possession of that bill. It ceases to be in the hands of the minister. That is indeed the rule. It's not for the minister to come and withdraw. The bill, please. You are insisting that it's the minister who should withdraw. I'm telling you that it's not the minister who should withdraw. Once it's referred to a committee, the committee takes possession of it. Mr. Speaker, in that regard, any member who is a member of the committee or who has associated with the committee in respect of the consideration and who knows the reason why it should be withdrawn could allude to it. Mr. Speaker, I believe that on this occasion I speak on behalf of both the minister and the committee to withdraw. And that indeed is, Mr. Speaker, with people who are saying that I can't do that, I'm sure they are not conversant with the rules. Let me refer us to Order 132. Order 132. It doesn't lie in the hands of the minister. It lies in the hands of the committee, of the member. Either before the commencement of public business or at the commencement of any stage of a bill, a member in charge of the bill may make a motion without notice for its withdrawal. That exactly is what I sought to do.
Mr. Speaker, the majority knows that when the business is before the House, yes, any member of the committee, in terms of moving the report, but when you want to withdraw the bill, it can only be done by the minister who did lay it. A minister cannot come and lay a business into the House, and any member of the committee comes to say they want to withdraw it. It's not done. He should read the rules very well. You are saying that the rule provider, and I say read it. You didn't read anything. Read it and tell us why it says that when a minister lays it, any member can withdraw it. Is that minister that has to withdraw it?
Kindly assist me. Which rules are you referring to? So I'll be guided. Yes.
If you look at Order 74, that talks about laying of papers. And specifically, it talks about those who can lay papers. And I'm saying that this particular paper was laid by a minister. It cannot take any member or any other person to say that it's going to withdraw that paper and relay. If you, Mr. Speaker, lay a paper and for any reason you want to withdraw it, you come to withdraw it, not another person. And because we may ask you, is there any special reason why you want to withdraw, then you may provide those reasons. But you are not the minister, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Majority Leader. So you cannot assume that you can do every other thing on behalf of other ministers. It's not proper. And you are making reference to Order 132. You are making a reference to Order 132. And Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I'll deal with Order 132. Either before the commencement of public business or at the commencement of any stage of a bill, a member in charge of the bill may make a motion without notice for its withdrawal. Are you the one who laid it? You are not in charge of the bill. So, Mr. Speaker, clearly based on the very rule that he was trying to, he doesn't have what it takes to withdraw it because he's not in charge of the bill. So please, let's do what is right. Let's not be turning our rules upside down in a manner that we want haste. Let's get the minister because he laid it. He's in charge of the bill. So when he withdraws it, he may give us reason. You are not in charge of that bill. So please, let's do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, U-turns are being made. First, the member insisted that it's only the minister who can do it. It's been shown to him that it's not the minister who does it. Mr. Speaker, I'm in charge of every bill that is laid. As the leader of government business, I'm in charge of every bill that is laid for and on behalf of government. As a leader of government business, I am in charge of every bill that is laid for and on behalf of government in this house. As you can, it's in that capacity I've made the unless you can show me otherwise. You are indicating. I've shown you on the 132. You said that it is only a minister. We don't talk at cross purposes here. Can I finish? I listened to you in calmness when we were talking. I disagreed with you, but I listened to you. Mr. Speaker, so the point I'm making is that you are insisting that I have no right to do that. It's only the minister who presented it who can do so. And I've showed you that what you are doing is incorrect. I'm supported by Order 132. You are not able to show anything, and you are just insisting that I can do it.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, I believe once the application is made to you, and we are masters of our own procedure, and you grant it, except to remind the Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs that if his overstretched interpretation that he is in charge and responsible for every bill, then tomorrow we won't need any minister to come to this house. Let him be his jack of all trades. But Mr. Speaker, on that day, 1st May, the Honorable Kandapa was not in this house. So he should walk back to his legs. When he turned back that day, Kandapa was not here. I tried to raise objection, and he said it was an urgent bill and even wanted us to consider. So that day he laid it. So he should persuade you to grant him leave, just as he did that day. You didn't remind Mr. Speaker. Oh, you didn't remind Mr. Speaker should know that you stood and stayed. But to say that you are responsible for every bill, that one, Mr. Speaker, will contest it. Other than that, no minister will come to this house again. They all say he should do it for them. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to further litigate this matter. I don't intend. The application that I made is to you. It's for you to make the determination. Mr. Speaker, as the minority leader has reminded, there were people saying that, well, you're not in charge. That day, 1st May, I laid the document for on behalf of the minister. Why was there no challenge that I couldn't have done so? So I did so on behalf of the minister. On behalf of the minister, Mr. Speaker, I'm doing the same thing, and that is why I asked for your indulgence. The indulgence of the Speaker is a permission.
Leader, I will come to the application, but people are making comments referring to the rules. I'm interested in listening. So let the Honourable Member for Keta come. After that, Honourable Member for Wa West, I will attend to you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I haven't listened to the minority leader. I take a cue as to what ought to be done. But even in that respect, if the minority leader says we are masters of our own rules and all that, and even if the majority leader should have that autonomy to withdraw the bill, it must be done with express reasons. Because you cannot just say that he's withdrawing the bill without telling us the essence and the reason for the withdrawal. But I still have a problem with he being in charge of every bill. It cannot be. If that were the case, then this standing order should have expressly stated it, that the majority leader and leader of government business is in charge of every bill. But it says what he himself read. 132 says, and the member in charge of the bill. And we all do know that members who are in charge of the bills are those who introduce the bill in the House. And every minister of state is an automatic member of this House, though they don't have a voting right. And so I would think that the majority leader must amend his own processes and approach to carrying out this activity. He must be able to tell us what are the cogent and the valid reasons for the withdrawal that he's seeking to achieve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Wow, West.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. The majority leader, when he was canvassing for this position to withdraw the bill, said that the House was now seized with the bill. We have to decide at what stage. But the order he read didn't say that. Number two, the way he has been taking on and laying, presenting papers on behalf of ministers. Today we have COVID, and therefore ministers are not traveling outside Ghana, and therefore cannot be available. So he cannot take upon himself to be the general layer of bills or presenter of papers on behalf of ministers. We are not encouraging the ministers to come and have the feel of what we think. Apart from that, The fact that we allowed you the first time to lay the bill didn't give you the opportunity to own it. You are not the one proposing it. So it is good to listen to us and say that on this occasion, I quoted the wrong. In fact, the others I quoted did not support my position, but I plead with Speaker. Speaker, allow me. But to say that we have taken control of the bill today, and you as a leader of the House, you can act on our behalf, I don't agree with you. Leader, you have to first beg us to agree, and then you plead with the Speaker.
Very well. I'll refrain from making any comment on who has custody or otherwise of the bill. But I'll grant the application by the majority leader to withdraw the bill. The bill is hereby withdrawn. The referral to the committee is also withdrawn. The Honorable Majority Leader, you may lay the new one.
An act relating to the National Security Council to provide for the establishment of regional and district security councils, to specify the agencies responsible for the security of the state, and to provide for related matters.
The bill is still late. It's referred to the Committee on Interior, Defense and Interior to consider and report. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker, given where we are, it's a pleasure of the Minister that the committee to which this referral has been made consider it and indeed make a determination that given where we are, they could consider this under a certificate of urgency. But of course, that determination must be made by the committee. Right? That's the pleasure of the Minister.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, some of these bills, by their very nature, I'm yet to see the explanatory memorandum pursuant to Article 106 of the Constitution. But Security and Intelligence Bill, this is not the kind of bill we should encourage going through certificate of urgency. The Ghanaian public must be carried along. Security agencies, intelligence community must be carried along. To just suspend our standing orders and run it through the is not the best for the character and nature of security. They just arrest people, keep them, no respect to constitutional provisions. We are not in a revolutionary military era. So this kind of bill must be subjected to public scrutiny, a thorough public scrutiny, and not encouraged to go through agency with suspension of our processes. Thank you. But rightfully, you can direct the committee to look at it. But I'm signaling that there will be objection to this particular issue, security and intelligence. They should go through the process. We should consult the public. What kind of security and intelligence they want to craft?
Well, I think both leaders are peaking too soon. I encourage you to urge your request of urgency at the committee. Is it within the powers of the committee? So you can go and make your arguments before the committee. But for now, it's referred to the committee. They will report to us what they think.
Because, Mr. Speaker, the reason why I thought that we should make a comment on the issue raised by the minority leader is this, that when a committee makes a determination that this matter could be taken under certificate of urgency, and because of the phraseology employed by the Constitution, it's made to appear as if everything should be stood down for the bill to be run through just one day. That's not it. The issue really has to do with the Gazette period, the 14-day notification that is required. That is what is to be waived for it. It could be done in maybe 1 month, so that concurrent to the publication, the Gazette period, consultation could be had. But Mr. Speaker, the old one that was referred to the committee, which they have done a very thorough job on, is about the same thing, except one issue that has to do with the position of the president on this. That's the only difficult matter, which now has been resolved. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to consider it in 1 day or even 1 week. They have to do the necessary consultations. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. The matter is referred to the committee. The committee will advise the House. Honorable Leader, are we ready to take the motions? 6 and 7.
Mr. Speaker, we will deal with the land bill, item 8.
Item 7.
Item 8.
Very well. Before item 8, I'll suspend sitting for 5 minutes. I'll come back. Honourable members, the Land Bill 2019 at the consideration stage. Honourable Chairman, are you ready to continue? Chairman of the committee, are you ready to continue?
Yeah.
Very well. Clause 23.
Power to direct survey.
Amendment proposed. Chairman of the committee.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Head notes.
Honourable member, hold on. Honourable member for Fija, something. If you're not participating, at least give us silence. Yes, Chairman, go on.
Amendment proposed, clause 23. Head notes. After direct, insert demarcation or. So it will be power to direct demarcation or survey.
Yes. Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I will support the chairman's amendment, but it means that the sectional note 2 will have to change because it still says survey of land, chapter 2. So if it's moving, once it's changing the head note, we must watch the sectional note there. And then he moves the motion jointly for both of it. Then we can support it. But when he's done, I'll seek your leave to amend the first line of 23. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But I don't know whether I understand what is here. Head note after direct and insert demarcation of.
Demarcation or survey.
They are different.
They are different.
They are different.
Yes.
Head note after direct. Power to direct demarcation or survey. That is what is intended.
Yes. It should
Very
be
well.
power to direct demarcation or survey.
All right.
Like
There's the end before insert, which is confusing me.
Oh, okay.
Very well.
But the survey of land, which is the title, should be demarcation or survey of land. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Very well. Honourable members, for the consideration of the House. All in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. Aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item III. Yes, Honourable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the chapter 2 really relates to survey of the land and valuation. So we rather should read survey and valuation.
It should read survey what?
Survey and valuation of land. That is the sectional note. The group note, I should say. The group note. It should be survey and demarcation. But the sectional note for 23, I agree with him, should be power to direct demarcation and survey. But the group note should be survey and valuation of land.
Yes, Honourable.
Speaker, I will fly with the majority leader, but he should draw his attention, want to draw his attention to page 27, there is a heading, the evaluation of land. Then if we do, then probably when we get here, we'll delete it and go with your, thank you.
Yes, honorable member for Wild West.
The proposal by the majority leader cannot be accepted because we have survey, and since they have amended it, and so it's survey and demarcation. But this is a chapter. Under the chapter, this is chapter 2 of the bill. Under the chapter, you have the sectional notes which talks about survey and demarcation. But if you go to page 27, you also now have sectional note, valuation of land. So they are separate. You see, so from the chapter, you now come to the sectional note proper, and that is survey and demarcation. Then in the next sectional note is valuation of land. So you can't add a valuation here.
Yes, honorable.
Mr. Speaker, clearly I believe my colleague also following the issue that I was raising very well. I'm saying that the chapter 2 is on survey and valuation. So the first one, really, that first part is on the demarcation and survey. But the second part of chapter 2 is on valuation. It's the same chapter. And that is why I said that the chapter head note should rather read survey and valuation. That's what I said. But when you come down to the sectional note in 23, I agree with the chairman that it should read power to direct demarcation and survey. That's what I said. Because the chapter is a two-part chapter. One is on survey and the other one is on valuation. And it's all chapter 2.
In that case, will you provide another subheading? The main chapter is survey and evaluation of land. Then you come down, you have survey. Then you go to the other part, valuation of land. Would that be appropriate? Very well. Yes, Honorable West.
Speaker, once you divide the bill into chapters, the chapter will just indicate chapter 2 as it is. But the sectional notes will have to be different. That is what I'm saying. If the next chapter is chapter 3, if you look at it, chapter 3 will have, we know what will be inside it, but you cannot say that chapter 3, this and that, unless you start off by seeing chapter 1. What was chapter 1 saying? So you must have uniformity in what you do. What I'm saying is that under the chapter, the sectional notes are distinct. They are not to be combined like the way he is talking about it. For instance, part 1 is another part, if you look at the beginning of the bill. But once you have part 1, then you have chapters within, subdivisions. Then you have the sectional notes, which will define what is following in the subsequent process. So bringing it out to the survey and valuation is not appropriate because valuation has been separated under the same chapter and it is on its own.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I support the direction of Honorable Yenetre. We are talking about chapter 2, and chapter 2 is in twofold. One is survey of land with detailed provisions, and then the other one, which is in 29, has a marginal note, valuation of land with its provisions. So under chapter 2, we have survey of land with its incidents And then if you go to the same chapter, in 29, we have valuation of land with each incident. So there is no need amending the heading to make it survey and valuation of land.
Yes, what's the position? On what should I put the question? Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, I don't really see the need for this splitting of hairs. What is chapter 2 about? Chapter 2 is about survey and valuation of lands. That is chapter 2. And then the first part deals with, that is the first part of chapter 2 is on the survey and demarcation of the land. The second part of the same chapter 2 is on valuation of the land. And that's why I said that for that chapter heading, because if you said, if the chapter should have a heading, then it should combine the survey and the valuation. That's all that I'm saying. Just like when you come to chapter 1, it's on customary land management. And then they are talking about stool lands, king lands, clan land, family or group lands. That is the management of those lands. That is chapter 1. And it's customary land management. They could have said management of, like 13, management of stools, kin, clan, family, and group lands. And then we have to cancel out some of them and relocate some elsewhere in chapter 1. But when you come to chapter 2, the whole business is about survey and valuation. The first part is on the survey. The second part is on the valuation. That's all that I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that the chapter head note then will have to describe the two, the survey and the valuation. So that the first part of that chapter 2 will then be the survey. The second part of that chapter 2 will be the valuation. That's commencing from section 29. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that we need to be splitting hairs on this.
Very well, I'll put the question. Many are in favor of the proposed amendments, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item II.
II. Amendment proposed. Opening phrase, line 1, before article, insert clause 2 of. So the new rendition will be, the Lands Commission may, subject to clause 2 of article 18, just to be specific.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before I support the chairman's amendment, I would seek your indulgence and leave to further amend and substitute the word may for shall in the first line, because this is an act of parliament. The Constitution is a constitution. So if you come to Article 18, it's one of the provisions that protects privacy rights. And therefore to say the Lands Commission may in the performance, no. The Lands Commission has an obligation to respect the Constitution in its letter and spirit. So the word may there should be substituted for shall. Then the rest of his rendition, I support him. But I would rather just advise that he should leave it at that. Don't go and emphasize 18.2, because 18.2 flows from 18.1, the Constitution. 18.1 provides every person has the right to own property, to own land, before you come to protect the privacy of that right. And therefore, to want to narrow it to emphasize 18.2, just leave it to 18, because you must own the property. Then the privacy related to the enjoyment and protection of that property. That would be my advice. But his first may must be substituted for shall, because the commission must respect the provisions of Article 18. Thank you.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the principle being espoused by the minority leader, but disagree that the word should be changed to shall. Is rather may. What it means is that you could even bring those words in parentheses to the beginning, and it will read, subject to Article 18 of the Constitution and any other relevant enactment, the Lands Commission may direct. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same. Mr. Speaker, that is the same. What it is that the Lands Commission may direct one of the three things to be done. They don't need to do all of them conjunctively. They may do one at a time. So when they elect to do that, then they should subject their operations to Article 80 of the Constitution. I agree that we may not have to perhaps include section clause 2. Yes, we may not have to include it. But the operative word there should be may and not shall.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, the Honorable Lecturer has just advised me that I can't know more than him because I'm doing self-tuition, which is true. I've started reading legislative draftsmen, which is the authority they asked me to learn from. So, since I'll go back to my book, I won't litigate on the may here. I will abandon it, but ask Chairman to abandon the emphasis on 2, and we can put the question on the 23. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to find out from the chairman why he wanted to just restrict the Article 18 to 2, not the entirety of Article 18. Because if you read Article 18, it is talking about first the right to own property before it talks about your private.
He's agreed.
Oh, you've agreed. So to abandon the clause 2. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so he says you should abandon the reference to stop clause 2. Is that agreeable? In that case, then the proposed amendment is dropped. All right, the advertised amendment. Is that right? Very well. So we'll leave that advertised amendment and go to item III. Yes.
No, this is 24.
Yes. Oh, sorry, we are done with 23. Very well. So, honourable members, clause 23 as amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 23 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 24.
Power of entry and service.
Amendment proposed. Chairman.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Head note. Before survey, we advertise to insert demarcation or, but with your leave, I want to change it to power of entry to demarcate or survey. To demarcate or survey.
Yes, Honorable.
Speaker, ordinarily there should be no problem with the chairman's proposal, but why not just leave it at power of entry? Power of entry, because you've already provided for in your earlier head notes in 23 power to direct survey and demarcation. So the next one could just be power of entry. But if you insist, that's fine.
Very well. I'll put a question. As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item IV.
IV. Surplus 1 line 3. Before survey, insert demarcation or. So the Lands Commission may, in writing, authorize any official surveyor or licensed surveyor, together with workmen, to enter upon any land to carry out demarcation or survey work specified in the authorization.
Honourable members, for the consideration of the House. Yes, Honourable Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that amendment indeed is consequential, and I think it should be supported. But my worry is what we mean in line 2. What we mean by together with workmen. The licensed surveyor is a person who has the authority to enter the premises. He may go to anybody. He may go to a place with anybody. So why do we say together with workmen? Very soon people will start challenging that, to say that why not work women? So then if it's a team, then together with workers, why workmen?
The workers.
Why workmen?
So it should be working.
Yes, I'm waiting to be guided.
Right, Honorable Speaker, the leader is proposing that the workmen should be workers, not workmen. So it will read, the Lands Commission may, in writing, authorize any official surveyor or licensed surveyor, together with the workers, to enter upon any workers, together with workers, to enter upon any land to carry out survey, demarcation or survey.
Yes, you're seeking to bring the workers, so it becomes a contentious matter who is a worker. The licensed surveyor is the one authorized. The people anybody who he works with is part of the licensed surveyor's responsibility. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my initial reservation had to do with the phrase together with workmen or workers, as in line 2. Because, Mr. Speaker, that could only be done administratively. If the surveyor cannot be there personally, he would delegate or authorize some other person to represent the interests of the surveyor. Do we have to legislate that he may go there in his own personal capacity together with workers? Do we have to legislate that? I'm not too sure that is appropriate.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
Speaker, I will persuade the leader workmen use the respects existing law. There's what we call the Workmen Compensation Act. Workmen Compensation Act. So we don't need to change workmen to workers. So the chairman must stand by the original rendition. Workmen exist. There's what we call the Workmen Compensation Act. When you get an accident in a workplace or something happens to you, you come under the umbrella of what we call the workmen. So workmen is an acceptable employment term of art. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, I do agree with the minority leader that the word workman is a term of art and that it makes reference to any person with some special set of skills to perform a certain task. But again, I don't know if what I heard the majority leader right well, that bringing together with workmen may not be too necessary because the emphasis is on a certain professional who is a surveyor. And so having talked about the surveyor, it will include all the people that he will require to work with. And so taking out together with workmen, for me, will achieve one and same purpose. Maintaining together with workmen or workers is just worthiness, additional words that do not really add anything new to the line thoughts. Mr. Speaker, this is my view. So I would think that the amendment may not be necessary. Rather, we should rather delete together with workmen to have surveyor or licensed surveyor to enter upon any land to carry out survey works specified in the authorization, because the emphasis is on surveying. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, several thoughts have gone into the drafting of this particular clause. Mr. Speaker, there has been several instances where surveyors have been chased from site, and even workmen too have been chased from site, some even beaten up by people or landowners. So it is important that emphasis is made that is not only the surveyor, but also including his workmen as well, so that there wouldn't be any ambiguity there. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member for Tamale North.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I agree with the Minister's suggestion that there is a need for clarity, especially given the experiences that surveyors and their workers have gone through on the field. But I am tempted to agree more with Honorable Richard Kwashiga's submission, except to just add that, Mr. Speaker, the provision with the inclusion of workmen seem to suggest that the licensing or the authorization, I should put it that way, the authorization has to be done separately for the surveyor and then his workmen. It's as if to suggest that the Lands Commission will have to give separate authorization to the surveyor and the workmen. That is how it appears when you include the workmen in the way it is phrased as of now. Mr. Speaker, I'll read just for emphasis. The Lands Commission may, in writing, authorize any official surveyor or licensed surveyor together with workmen. It seems to suggest that the authorization will be done by the Lands Commission for the surveyor separately and for his workmen separately. And I don't think that is the intention of this provision. And so if we take the workmen out, it will go in line with what Richard Koshiga suggests, Honorable Richard Koshiga suggests, that once the surveyor is going to the site, he definitely, if he has authorization, will go with other officers that will be required to do the work, and they will all be protected under his or her authorization. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that we may have to delete those words together with workmen, or if it's workers, we may have to delete that phrase. And in the interpretation of surveyor, we will say surveyor means an official land surveyor or licensed land surveyor authorized by the Lands Commission, and includes the relevant workers who assist the surveyors to perform any function under this act. So that we save it.
Yes, so I'll wait for the proposal to be made, what included or not.
Mr. Speaker, so I am saying that for 24, line 2, we delete the words together with workmen.
As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is, clause 24 as amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 24 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 25.
Compensation for damage caused.
Clause 25.
Yes.
Amendment proposed. Subclause 1, lines 2 and 3, delete a valuer appointed by the Lands Commission and insert the Land Valuation Division of the Lands Commission.
Honourable members, for the consideration of the House. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item VI. Chairman.
Clause 25. Subclause 3, line 2. Delete a valuer and insert the Land Valuation Division of the Lands Commission. Same.
All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item VII.
Clause 25. VII, clause 25. Add the following new subclause 24.4 as follows. The Lands Commission shall respond to an application for review under this session within 30 days. Mr. Speaker, we only want to give some timelines.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the chairman says that a new subclause, and it's quoting 24.4. I don't understand why we're in 25 and you are quoting 24.4.
Yes, Chairman, why are we adding to 24.4 when we are doing 25?
Mr. Speaker, is an error. I think it should be 25.4.
To be 25.4. Chairman, I want to be sure we are adding to 25, so to be 25.4. Is that right?
Subclause.
Yes.
In 25, there's subclause 4. So I don't know whether you want this one to come before the 4 become 5.
So we just added a new clause to 25. Very well. So a new subclause to 25. All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is, clause 25 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 25 as variously amended. So that is stand part of the bill. Clause 26.
Erection of boundary marks.
Amendment proposed. Chairman.
Clause 26, line 1. Delete who has been, and in line 2, delete land and insert lands. So the new rendition will be an official surveyor or licensed surveyor authorized by the Lands Commission shall, where the boundaries of the land under survey have not already been correctly marked in the prescribed manner, mark out the boundaries of the land in the manner prescribed by regulations.
All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. Aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now, clause 26 as amended. So that to stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say yes. Honorable Minority Whip.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I have to take it back. When he said delete land and insert lands, Mr. Speaker, in line 2, you have 2 lands. Which of them is he referring to? If you look at an official surveyor or licensed surveyor authorized by the, is it this land or the second one, which is a land? Because by just deleting lands, you may get it wrong.
Yes, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker is right. It's the first land, the Lands Commission. Yes.
The clarification having been sought, I'll make the declaration again. Clause 26, as amended, is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 27.
Penalty for destroying boundary marks.
Yes, Chairman.
Clause 27, amendment proposed, subclause 1, line 3. Delete 5 and insert 1. And then in line 5, delete 5 years and insert 1 year. So the new rendition will be a person who willfully or unlawfully destroys, moves, or alters a boundary of survey mark, commits an offense, and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not less than 1,000 penalty units instead of 5, and not more than 10,000 penalty units, or to an imprisonment for a term not less than 1 year and not more than 10 years or to both.
All in favor of the proposed amendment say yes, Honorable Chief.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not just sure if we could leave this to the drafters, because there's a corresponding penalty units to imprisonment terms. I don't know whether the chairman has cross-checked this, and this is the consistent one. The 1,000 is equivalent to the 1 year. I just want to be sure. Oh, okay.
Yes, Chairman.
So the Attorney General was with us, and he said 1 and 1 they correspond. So 1,000 penalty units and 1 year, I think they correspond. So it's okay.
As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 27 as amended. Shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 27 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. I further direct that the draft person shall ensure that the 1,000 penalty units correspond to the appropriate penalty line imprisonment for the purpose. Thank you. Clause 28.
Penalty for obstructing survey.
Amendment proposed. Chairman.
Clause 28. Amendment proposed. Concluding paragraph, line 2. Concluding paragraph, line 2. no, sorry. X, paragraph A, line 1, insert E before license, and in line 2, delete B, and insert E. And on the same line, delete of that surveyor and insert under this chapter. So, Right Honorable Speaker, the new rendition will be a person who willfully obstructs or resists A, an official surveyor or a licensed surveyor in the execution of a duty under this chapter or.
Honourable members, as many as are in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XI.
XI, amendment proposed, concluding paragraph, line 2. Delete 5 and insert 1. And line 3, delete 5 years and insert 1 year.
All in favour of yes, Honourable Member Foketa.
Mr. Speaker, I want to seek a little clarity, which will apply to the earlier clause that we looked at. We have substituted 1 for 5 years, but the limit of 10 years remains. Is that the case, or that also is supposed to change?
You mean 10,000 penalty units?
10 years.
Sorry, I want to be sure. Yes, Chairman, do you want to leave it to the judge, or you want him to determine that a person may not be in prison for more than 10
Right,
years?
Honorable Speaker, we want the parliament to remain 10 years.
The maximum penalty, 10 years.
Yes.
The minimum 1 year. Very well. So I'll put the question. As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 28 as amended. Shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 28 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 29.
Or to conduct evaluation.
Yes, Chairman.
Right, Honorable Speaker, clause 29. Amendment proposed, subclause 1, line 1. Delete it and insert there. So the new rendition will be the Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions under this Act and any other enactment, cause any land to be valued.
All in favor of the proposed amendment? Yes, Honorable the Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know. The original rendition is better than what he's trying to do. You see, the Land Commission may, in the performance of the function, of its functions.
Well, I recall that in the last 3 years or so, we have avoided pronouns in all our legislations. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think I was trying to see if commission has been defined. If it's not been defined, then we may need to repeat the commission at the end of the first line, because we want to do away with the use of the possessive pronoun, as we have been doing. The Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions of the Lands Commission under this Act, and any other enactment, cause any land to be valued. Even though it's repetitive, Mr. Speaker, that is how we have been doing it.
Lands Commission means Lands Commission established under Article 258 of the Constitution on page 144.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that's what I'm saying. If we could use commission, it will shorten it. Unfortunately, it looks like there are some other commissions established by this. So,
under this act, are there other commissions?
There's no other commission.
No.
If there's no other commission, then we can then use commission to refer to the Lands Commission. So that at the end, it will mean the Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions of the commission. But in that case, Mr. Speaker, we don't even have to be repeating Lands Commission. After its first use, we can then use commission to refer to the Lands Commission.
So what's the proposed amendment? Yes, another member for Qatar.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the point the majority leaders raised, but is it not also the case that even though there is no other mention of commission in this bill, is it not the case that it gives it that emphasis, the Lands Commission, so that there will be no ambiguity anywhere when the Lands Commission is mentioned, because you may be dealing with situations where other commissions may be involved, and if you are making reference to the commission, it can create some noise as to the clarity. And so I would think that maintaining the Lands Commission, which gives it that finality of what is in reference, will not really create any challenge or difficulty for us. Thank you.
Yes, because it refers to this act and other enactment. There may be other enactments that commission may be used, and it may be another commission. Yes, Honourable Member for Tamales and North.
Mr. Speaker, I would have left this for the chairman to do. The broad headline, there was a proposed amendment to that one. That is valuation and certification of land was supposed to be introduced. I don't know how
You're talking about clause 30, right?
Yes.
We are not there yet.
We are not
dealing with clause 29 now.
Okay. Now on 29, Mr. Speaker, I think that the Lands Commission is not the only body mandated to carry out valuation. But when it comes to land, I think this provision is to make it categorical, that it is the Land Commission that, under this act, will be responsible for the valuation of land. And so the article there makes it categorical that when it comes to land, it is the commission, because there are other bodies in charge of valuation of other properties. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member just made a statement regarding the Lands Commission's role. In fact, the Land Valuation Division of the Lands Commission is the only certified valuer, government valuer in Ghana. So that is their role. We don't have any other.
Very well. Under this act, the commission and its agencies, that's fine. So I think there, as they're proposing the amendment, will be sufficient. Let's proceed. Yes. What is the proposed amendment is that the Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions under this act and any other enactment, cause any land to be valued under the functions of the Land Commission under this Act. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I think even the language is a bit untidy, although these are supposed to be technical, what's it called, enactments. But if you want to have a very smooth understanding, which is also part of the modern day lawmaking, that anybody reading the law should have some understanding of it. And I don't see why we should replace "is" with "there," because it's borne out by the meaning of the very paragraph. It's all clear. The Lands Commission may, in the performance of its function under this Act. I mean, I don't see any clarity more than that I want to replace the functions. I mean, it's like, so I think, I mean, it makes for easier understanding.
The functions of the Commission under this Act.
Yes. Its functions under this Act. Because there are several functions outside the Act.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Works and Housing is correct that that sentence is clear enough, except to remind him that the drafters have moved away from the use of the possessive pronouns. So, at the instance of Justice V.C. R.A.C. Crown, possessive pronouns are no longer used. And so, in that case, we have to repeat some of them. The Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions under this Act, or if you like, to make it abundantly clear, the performance of the functions of the Commission under this Act and any other enactment may cause any land to be valued. That's the only reason. But nobody is saying that it's not clear. It is clear, except that we've moved away long time ago from the use of the possessive pronouns.
Yes, so Chairman, the functions of the Commission will make it clearer. The Lands Commission may, in the performance of the functions of the Commission under this Act. I'll put the question. All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is, Clause 29 as amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 29 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 30.
Evaluation certification.
Yes, Chairman.
Clause 30, amendment proposed, line 1, delete under this session. So the new rendition will be evaluation certified by the Lands Commission shall be presumed to be correct until proved otherwise.
Honourable members, for the consideration of the House. All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XIV. Yes, Honourable Majority Leader.
Upon objection or appeal.
Chairman.
XIV, subclause 1, line 2 and 3, delete upon objection or appeal. That's the concluding phrase of the same sentence. That's why I did not get to that end. We want the upon objection or appeal to be deleted.
As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XV.
XV, clause 30, amendment proposed. Add the following new subclause as 31 as follows. Evaluation conducted under Section 29 shall be certified by the Commission.
All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 30 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say no. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I was looking at the chronology of 30. I just noticed that the amendment moved by the chairman really means that there should be what he just said. The new subclause should really precede what obtains in the bill. So that one then will become 31. And with that understanding, I think that is good.
Very well. I'll direct the draftspersons to rearrange the clause as appropriate. Now, clause 30, as variously amended, is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 31.
Forms of valuation and purposes of capital valuation.
Amendment proposed. Chairman. Yes, proceed.
Clause 31, amendment proposed. Head note, delete all the words after purposes. So it will read forms of valuation and purposes.
As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XVII.
Clause 31, amendment proposed, redrafts the whole clause 31 as follows. 1. For the purposes of this act, A, forms of valuation include I, capital valuation, rental valuation, rating valuation. Capital valuation include valuation of the estate of deceased person, valuation ordered by a court of competent jurisdiction, valuation for compensation under compulsory acquisition.
Chairman, since it is more than 4 lines, you may refer to it as advertised.
Okay.
Yes. So, honourable members, for the consideration of the House. All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. Aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now, clause 31 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 31 as variously amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 32.
General provisions on transfers.
There's no advertised amendment to clause 32. I'll put the question. All in favor of clause 32 being a part of the bill, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 32 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 33.
Person qualified to prepare conveyance.
Clause 33 is in the name of the Majority Leader, Mr. Osechi Mensah-Bonsu.
Mr. Speaker, I think this is 33.
That's why you're seeking to add the conveyance. As for this one, I suggest that we defer it because the two categories of professionals in contention here are not going to let up. So, Honourable Majority Leader, if you agree, we will we will defer this one. I'll actually prefer to be a part of the debate rather than the presiding officer on this matter.
Yes, we can stand it down. When we see professional lobbyists in the chamber, we have a problem. Yes, we can agree that we stand it down for the time being.
Very well. So the proposed amendment to clause 33 is deferred. Clause 34.
Contract for transfer.
Clause 34, Opening phrase, line 2, delete it and insert the contract. So the new rendition will be a contract for the transfer of an interest in land is not enforceable if the contract is not. This will follow.
Other members, for the consideration of the House. As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 34 as amended. Shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 34 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. There is no advertised amendment to clause 35. Clause 35.
Mode of transfer.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
There's a minor omission in what we did in 31.3. 31.3. I think it should read in accordance with the Local Governance Act, right?
31.2. Rating valuation shall be conducted
31.3.
in accordance with the Local Governance Act 2016.
Local Governance.
Yes, that's what is here. Local Governance Act.
Or I have Governance Act.
That's
Because you have the Tuesday, 7th July. You have the Tuesday, 7th July. What is before me here is Governance Act. I think you should read Local Governance Act.
So which clause are you seeking to amend?
The 31.3 as amended on page 6 of the order paper.
Page 26.
Page 6 of the order paper.
The proposed new clause. Oh, very well. I was looking at the bill. Okay. So all in favor of the insertion of governance? Sorry, local before governance. Say aye. I'll put the question again. All in favor of insertion of local before governance? Say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Yes, Honorable Leader.
Speaker, again, minor correction for 4. The minister may, come after may, in consultation with the Lands Commission, so we'll delete the may in line 2 by legislative instrument.
That's a rearrangement, removing the may, bringing it in the first line, and amending B to by.
That is so.
All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. And I'll put a question on clause 31 again. That clause 31 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 31 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. Now we're on clause 34. And I'll put the question on clause 34. That clause 34 as various, yes, I already put the question on 34. I went to 35, sorry. There's no advertised amendment to clause 35. As many as are in favor of clause 35 being part of the bill, say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 35 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 36.
Transactions exempt from sections 34 and 35.
There's no advertised amendment. All in favor of clause 36 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 36 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 37.
Record of customary transfer.
Yes. Amendment proposed. XX. Chairman.
Clause 37. 37.
36. No amendment.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, 36, 2, line 2. Is the word unconscionability or unreasonability? I thought per Article 22(1) of the Constitution, the word is unreasonable. But I don't know what is the preference of, what is the term of art in the industry, whether it's unconscionability.
Unconscionability, yes.
Or unreasonability.
It's unconscionability.
Okay.
It's unconscionable. Very well. Clause 37. Chairman, you may move your amendment.
Clause 37, subclause 5, line 3 and 4. Delete copies sent to the Lands Commission, Alodia, Unes, and Stu Lands, and insert shall send copies to the Lands Commission and Alodia, Unes.
Honourable members, the proposed amendment is for the consideration of value consideration and the purchase in good faith. The good faith will become an issue. Honourable member for Wa West. Practitioners, what is your view? Good faith introduced into the bill. Yes, Honourable Member.
Yes, Honourable Speaker, that is how it should be. So that even if there's a purchase and it's not in good faith, it will tantamount to fraud. And therefore, it gives meaning to what is fair and reasonable. That every acquisition should be in good faith. So I think it doesn't injure the meaning of that clause. It rather makes for genuine acquisitions.
Yes.
Speaker, I'm not a practitioner, but my layman's perspective, who determines good faith? If we are using the phrase good faith, who determines it? How is it determined?
The interpretation of the law is always left to the courts. Yes. Very well, honourable members. As many as are in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against that say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 43 as amended. Shall stand part of the bill. All in favour say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 43 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 44.
Unconscionability.
Chairman, item XXVI.
Leader, you've seen your
Right, Honourable Speaker. Clause 44, amendment proposed, line 3. Delete it and insert the court. So the new rendition will be the court may set aside or modify an agreement to convey or a conveyance of an interest in land on the ground of unconscionability where the court is satisfied.
As many as are in favour of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 44 as amended. Yes, Honourable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I believe there should be some consequential amendments to 44B. their relative bargaining positions. Who's the there being referred to? Is the relative bargaining positions of the parties. I think it's better constructed that way. So B should be the relative bargaining positions of the parties. And then D, their agreement should also reflect same amendments.
Yes, the D, it should be the agreement. Evidence as to the commercial certain purpose and effect of the agreement. Would that be sufficient or? Yes, because it all relates to the agreement from the beginning. Very well. So all in favor of the proposed amendments, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 44 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 44 as amended shall stand part of the bill. Clause 45.
Other grounds for varying or setting aside conveyance.
There's no advertised amendment to clause 45. As many as are in favor of clause 45, forming a part of the bill, say aye. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering whether the description listed beneath, that is 45, is all encompassing because the Constitution uses these words: deception, fabrication, and corruption. I don't know whether we can have them encapsulated in any of these words. But deception is used, fabrication is used. Can we have them in these descriptions listed beneath? If they are embedded in any of them, then we can leave them. But if you deem it appropriate to incorporate those words, deception, fabrication, and corruption, well, those are specific words used in the
corruption.
Deception, fabrication, and corruption. I don't know whether
they will all come under fraud.
Or deception, fraud, fabrication, fraud.
Yes.
If they are encapsulated, then we can leave it. Perhaps I'm saying those are words used in the Constitution.
Yes, Honorable Member for Kenta.
Mr. Speaker, the word fraud, I don't know if explicitly it encompasses deception. I'm not very clear in my mind if fraud captures deception as well. Maybe to an extent, but deception can come in different forms, which may not necessarily be fraud. I don't know. I'm looking at it from the layman's perspective. I'm not a legal mind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honorable members. Honorable Chairman, I want to listen to you. Honorable Member for Adansi Asokwa. Clause 45 as varying ground for varying or setting aside conveyance, and it includes a mistake, fraud, illegality, duress, misrepresentation, or undue influence. But the majority leader thinks that we should make a special case to include deception and corruption. Misrepresentation is covered. Misrepresentation is there. They are all part of
deception, fabrication, and corruption.
Fabrication will be captured under misrepresentation, right? Corruption, I don't know where you've corruption. Yes, let me listen to Honorable Ketiamont, then.
Outline what is the suggestion that they are not good enough for mistake, for fraud, illegality, duress, misrepresentation, and undue influence. What's wrong?
In addition to these, we should include fabrication, corruption, and deception.
But fabrication is either fraud or it's or no. If you fabricate, it's illegal.
Misrepresentation.
Yeah, it could also be misrepresentation. So why do we have to add fabrication?
That's what I want to hear your views.
Mr. Speaker.
Deception, is it different from fraud?
Yeah, so deception is fraud. Yes. Yeah, so I'm wondering. Can we convince the leader that we just accept fraud?
Yes, Honorable Member for Wawe. Yes, Wawe. Leader, let me listen to Wawe, then we'll give you the last one.
Speaker, the items listed here are sufficient. If you now want to introduce deception and corruption, I mean, you must have a law dealing with this. But under fraud or misrepresentation, it is also an element to deceive. So long as you also misrepresent, you are doing so intentionally. Of course, it's a crime. So these are all covered. But if you now put deception there and corruption there, it will be difficult to prove these cases. And this one that has been listed, I think we should leave them as they are.
I'll go to the member for the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think the leader's concern probably is to make it a bit elastic. But when you use the word include, that means it's expansive enough. You leave it to the good sense of the judges to, if it's corruption and all the rest of them, it will come into force. So I think that include, means that it is not foreclosed. A lot of issues can come under that. So that should suffice. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, get that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Atachia. But for those who claim that deception finds space or expression in corruption, can always not be the case. Because if you look at the definition of deception, the word deception, if I say I am 60 and I'm actually 50, can you say that is fraud? You cannot. Telling of half-truths necessarily may not be fraud. And even if you look at the description...
But if it is not fraud, it is a misrepresentation.
Yes, it could be misrepresentation. But I'm only concerned about those who try to give the impression that it finds expression in, fraud, that it can always mean safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Honorable Majority Leader, I'll give you the last word, but I think most of these words have been litigated and pronounced upon by the courts over the years. So those are the ones that are guiding this.
What is important is to include the word here. The word include is used here. That seems to me to encompass all that we are talking about. Because then in that case, the use of generis rule would come into play, will be triggered, and then you can add whatever there is to add if it falls into that family. I think we should leave it at this time. Leader, the speaker is waiting on you.
Yes, because as I said, I have no fixation on that. I just brought them up for us to consider, say, if they are encapsulated in those captured under 45, I'm okay with it. I just brought them up so that we think through better, to have a better formulation. But if members here think that we should allow what is here to stand, I have no fixation.
Very well. Clause 45 shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 45 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 46.
Conveyance to persons jointly or to person making transfer.
Let's not advertise amendment to clause 46. All in favor of clause 46 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 46 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 47.
Restrictions on transfer of land by spouse.
Item XXVII. Chairman.
Right, Honorable Speaker. This is restriction on transfer of land by spouse. So similarly, I want us to stamp this one too down so we discuss with the others.
Restrictions on transfer of land by spouses. Another one. Very well. We'll defer that and move on. Clause 48.
Agreement with two or more persons.
Let's advertise amendment to clause 48. As many as are in favor of the clause 48 being part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 48 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Honorable Hajia knows why I'm laughing. We have had quite a long debate over this, and she is in my corner in these matters. We are very strong on certain issues. Yes. Clause 49.
Apportionment of conditions on severance.
Let's not
between the proposed amendment and what is already captured. What is captured is saying that where there is a renewal and there are new terms, the renewal is subject to the head lease, the lease that is already in existence, and the new terms. It's the same thing, almost the same thing with the amendment. It's almost the same. Because actually, the amendment is ousting the head lease. You could have a renewal that is not taking into consideration the terms already captured in the head lease. So I think that the best rendition is what is captured by the drafters. That where there is a lease in existence and the lease is to be renewed, the terms in the head lease and the new agreement constitute the renewal. That's what this one is saying.
But that presumes that every new lease is subject to an existing one.
That's if it's a renewal.
If
it is a renewal.
What about if there's none? Or yes, you intend to negotiate a totally new arrangement? So whether you intend a totally new arrangement or you want to subject it to the old one, it is what is agreed between the parties. And that's why I think the amendment is better. As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XXXIV.
Amendment proposed. Subclause 21, line 4. Delete adequate and insert reasonable. You want reasonable payment, not adequate payment.
Other members for the consideration of the House. Yes, another member for West.
What is reasonable? Because adequate, the person will say, this is how I want it. But to say reasonable, who decides the reasonability of this charge?
So who decides the adequacy? Not speaking to the mic, though. Honorable West, we want to hear you. Speak to the mic, please.
I'm saying that the chairman is talking about replacing adequate with reasonable. But adequate, we know, is a quantity that we agree on. But reasonable, you don't agree on it. I think that is reasonable. You say no. But if I say, this is the price I want to do something, That is adequate. If you don't satisfy me, I don't agree. So I don't see why, Chairman, you will be replacing this. What is the reason?
I don't know how different is that from whether what you consider adequate and what I consider adequate. But I think consideration, as is defined, it need not be adequate or sufficient. So whether it's reasonable, adequate, or sufficient, as long as it's consideration for the person who is parting with the land, I think it should be okay. Yes. Let me listen to the lay people before we come to the lawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think that if you say something is reasonable, it suffices to a large extent, and that is acceptable. So, but if we say adequate, I mean, largely it could even be a thin line between the two, really. This thing is adequate from the perspective of whoever is giving it out or from whom it's been taken. And others may consider a certain amount to be reasonable. So, I mean, largely, maybe the word reasonable, the reasonableness of a particular thing may be acceptable to the generality. You know, so I think it's okay, it's appropriate that we go with the word reasonable. It doesn't really take anything much away from maintaining the word adequate, from my layman's perspective.
Let me listen to the minister, then I'll come. Wait, listen to others, and you may. Yes, Ranking.
Mr. Speaker, you answered it. You answered it by saying adequate. What is adequate? And I believe that you are referring to the decided cases where consideration need not be adequate. The correct word in law is sufficient. Sufficient payment, but not adequate, because consideration need not be adequate or reasonable, but it should be sufficient. And that is why I don't, if they want to change adequate, it should be sufficient. Consideration should be sufficient, not adequate, because consideration need not be adequate.
Yes, Honorable.
I'm proposing that we delete adequate and put sufficient.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm tempted to agree with him. Yes, because sufficient should be the right word. Yes. Other than that, then we should stick to adequate. But sufficient is better than reasonable.
Yes, Honorable Member for West.
Mr. Speaker, now we are going into definition of words. Sufficient, adequate, and reasonable. I mean, the issue is sufficient in terms of what? It's the same thing as adequate. But if he is saying this is what normally is in the language of conveyancing, fine, I think that we should use that. But reasonableness is something that is a little bit subjective. Sufficient, there must be, and that's what I said about adequate, because if you say the thing is sufficient, it means you know the value, and the person agrees with the value. But if it's reasonableness, this value is not reasonable. And somebody said, no, it is reasonable. But if I say, it means you have satisfied my minimum, or adequate, it means you have satisfied my minimum. But if you say it's reasonable, I say, how? It's not.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I like the reasonableness rendition. You can't talk about adequate. Whatever you suspect might be adequate for you will not necessarily be adequate for me. My circumstance might not be as adequate as yours. Reasonable is within a certain context, and we always talk about the reasonableness of it. So let's leave it at that. It's a term of art, reasonable within the context, you know. So
the reasonable man.
The reasonable man. The man on the
Can you know
what a reasonable person is, you know. So let's leave it at the Well, I've come by the speaker another phrase. He said that he represents the anthropomorphic conception of justice. You know, yeah, the reasonable man represents the anthropomorphic conception of justice. So let's leave it at the reasonable man. Yes, reasonable.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
So I agree, except that reasonableness is an objective standard. Depends on the nature of the land. But the sufficient consideration is between the parties. If the parties agree that this is sufficient, so be it. So it's not an objective test. Sufficient is not an objective test. I'm reading the same thing that you are reading. The 21. I'm reading the same thing that you are reading. I'm saying that I agree with him to the extent that when you say reasonable consideration, it's an objective test. And it depends on the nature of the land. For instance, in this particular land case. So consideration must be reasonable from an objective view. But because parties are entering into a transaction, parties can agree that this consideration for the land is sufficient. It's not reasonable, it's sufficient. No, it might not be reasonable in the objective test.
Our members, we want the appropriate word, and we agree on reasonable, don't we?
No.
Which is beginning to convince me. So
yes.
Maybe he might. Yeah,
yes.
Let him. Yeah.
Yes. But Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that first of all, you set out the principle that consideration need not be adequate. So it's a principle in law. So adequate is wrong. Reasonableness is an objective standard. It's an objective criteria. Depends on the nature of the land, in this particular case, or the nature of the activity. So, and it's objective because any ordinary man, the ordinary man on the trotro must say that this payment is reasonable. But the parties, because of the sanctity of contracts, the parties can decide that this is the consideration for the land and it's sufficient for them. That is why I am proposing that.
But you see, we are legislating for a situation where there's disagreement. If there's agreement between them, we won't need this one. We are saying that you may take somebody's usufructuary right and compensate the person. So we are providing for a situation where there's disagreement as to what compensation, in which case then reasonableness is the appropriate terminology. Adequacy, yes, you're taking, I have the right to farm here, but now the community has grown to that place. We want to take that place for a public park. So we are compensating you. In that case, objectivity becomes the criteria. All right. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if it is to compensate, then it can either be adequate or sufficient, but not reasonableness, because there's nothing like reasonableness in compensation. I mean, it's a comparison, a value. You are comparing a value.
Yes, Honorable.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I found the meaning of adequate in the Webster's dictionary as follows. If you give me just a little second for me to, and probably it could resolve it. Adequate. Honorable Speaker, adequate also means that something is. Sorry? Sorry?
The first meaning is what? He said it also means, so it means what before you move on to that.
Okay, right, Honorable Speaker, let me just fall on the second meaning, lawfully and reasonably sufficient. That is adequate, lawfully and reasonably sufficient. Yes. So I think the adequate should be maintained. It will take care of the reasonableness. Yes. Because the other meanings are sufficient for a specific need or requirement. So when the proper understanding of it, lawfully and reasonably sufficient is adequate. So I don't think we should disturb it and replace it with reasonableness. I should look at sufficient. Honorable Speaker, do I have my permission to your permission to look at sufficient? Is that
Yes, Honorable Member Boketa.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm excited that Honorable Atacha made reference to the Webster Dictionary. And earlier on, I indicated that there's just a thin line between adequate and reasonableness. But Mr. Speaker, you gave a scenario. For instance, a parcel of land meant for some individual had been taken for some public good, and there is need for compensation. At a particular time when that compensation is supposed to be made, the amount may be so huge that the state or maybe a district assembly may not be able to contain it. So they want to find a middle ground, which necessarily may not be equal to how much the land naturally will cost. The reason for being reasonable. That is where the word reasonability comes in. So you become, the owners will have to be somewhat reasonable in relation to the amount that can be paid by the state. I think that is a context in which the word reasonable becomes appropriate. In this context, we are dealing with land. We are looking at practicalities of things and not necessarily the meaning and the essence of the words. We must look at how it fits into what can, at the end of the day, be practically applied. Other than that, if you are talking about sufficient or adequate, it will get to a point where a district assembly takes over a particular patch of land, and the owners may be demanding amounts of money that the assembly may not be afford. And so if you use the word reasonable, then we are on a safer ground, as it were, to deal with such unforeseen situations, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I still believe that the amendment being proposed by the chairman, reasonable, should be the way to go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member for Blekuma North.
Mr. Speaker, in the context that he spoke, I feel the reasonable doesn't come in. That is, if you will give a compensation that may be reasonable to somebody, but it may not be reasonable to me if we need to pay on a particular, that from his contest, a land, and we feel that there is an argument or a contest between two parties, and you need to pay a compensation to someone. Whatever you give to the person may not be reasonable to the person, but I feel that, and there is no reasonable compensation, but you can have an adequate or enough compensation.
Meanwhile, I'm looking at the definition of sufficient, and it includes adequate. So the words are the same, adequate, sufficient. They mean the same thing. Yes,
you have just drawn my attention.
He hasn't spoken.
You have drawn my attention to something. I just want to. You drew my attention to something here, which I think that we should. I will withdraw my earlier amendment, proposed amendment of sufficient, and maintain adequate, because you said that this is where there is disagreement, and the land is to be taken. I believe that the adequate used here derives from the whole principles: fair, adequate, and sufficient compensation. And the Minister for Water Resources has given us the Webster's dictionary a meaning. So I believe that they are importing the whole principles here, that compensation payment must be adequate. I believe that is what they are trying to do here.
Yes, let's agree on. Let me listen to Honourable Member for Tamale North, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think Honourable Tamale Central almost took the wind out of my sail. Mr. Speaker, I think adequate is driven from, what is usually associated with compensation. And by the examples given here, Mr. Speaker, what is reasonable will not always be sufficient to both parties. Like the example Honorable Richard Kwashiga gave, what is said to be reasonable in the context of, if you like, a disagreement, may not be sufficient even for both parties. But if the land available and the portions given is considered reasonable, it may not necessarily mean that it is sufficient to the parties that are involved. But if adequate, especially given from the definition that was given by the Honourable Minister for Works and Housing, caters for the reasonability and the sufficiency of the settlement, then I think it's more appropriate, word for us to use in this circumstance, especially because it involves or it is about a disagreement and what settlement will be satisfactory to some extent to both parties. Thank you.
Honourable members, I think I actually misdirected the discussion. This clause 20, subclause 21 deals with paying adequate or compensation to the allodia owner. You, the usufructuary user, transferring the interest in your usufruct, paying the compensation to the owner. So I think, well, probably adequate is the appropriate. Yes, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, we went through the same argument at the committee level. So I was just listening to be sure, because so many people had examples, especially our lands commission staff, of people buying or giving compensation of a particular plot, and then the adjoining plot becomes more expensive. So they decided that the value should be reasonable within a locality. That is why we use that word, but subject to your directive.
I have no directive power in this one. It's a decision of the House. Yes, Honourable Member for
we urge the chairman to withdraw his amendment because we should retain what is in there. Those arguments you were making didn't satisfy Parliament.
Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know why colleagues are putting pressure on the chairman to withdraw. The chairman has just indicated to us that the experts who deal with these matters in the field are saying that there are minefields out there if you use the word adequate, and that reasonableness must be what can actually, as it were, save some nasty situations in the future. Mr. Speaker, if indeed what they are saying is the case, then it means that we must go by what they are proposing. Reasonable, the word reasonable. Because you go out there, like he indicated, which was similar to the example I gave, and an assembly wants a patch of land for a very important state or national development. And that land, they don't have the requisite funds to compensate the owners of the land. What does that then mean? It means that land cannot be acquired or used for the purpose for which it is intended to benefit the entire society.
Honourable Member, I think we moved away from that. Now we are talking about you being an allodia owner, and then your nephew farming on it. Your nephew decides to sell a portion to me, a stranger. They're saying that because he should give you, the allodia owner, compensation or some payment before it transfers to me, not the community use now. So that's why adequate is, I think, appropriate. So, Chairman, you draw your amendment, are you?
Right, Honorable Speaker, amendment withdrawn.
Very well, let's proceed. XXXV.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I think you have to put the question on the whole process.
Very well. Oh, sorry, that's the end of clause 50. Very well then. All in favor of clause 50 as amended, being part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 50 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 51.
Implied covenants by person to whom transfer is made.
Yes, honorable member. Oh, very well. Honorable members, it's past 2 p.m., but I want to get up to clause 56. So, having regards to the state of the business of the House, I direct that the House sits outside the regular sitting hours. Yes, clause 52.
Clause 52. Amendment proposed.
I haven't taken 51. No. Clause 51, there's no advertised amendment. All in favor of clause 51 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 51 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 52.
Persons to take benefit of implied covenant.
Yes, Chairman. Amendment proposed.
Clause 52. Amendment proposed. Line 2. Delete capable of being enforced and insert enforceable.
Honourable members, so many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now the question is clause 52 as amended. Shall stand part of the bill. Say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 52 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 53.
Benefit of covenants relating to land.
There's no advertised amendment to clause 53. All in favor of clause 53 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 53 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 54.
Bedding of covenants relating to land.
There's no advertised amendment to clause 54. All in favor of clause 54 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 54 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 55.
Benefit of covenants to run with reversion.
All in favor of clause 55 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 55 is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 56.
Burden of covenants to run with reversion.
All in favor of clause 56 being a part of the bill, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clause 56 is ordered to stand part of the bill. That brings us to the end of consideration of the Lands Bill 2019 for today.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
respectfully, we did the winnowing up to 59. So if we can carry ourselves to 59, then we can stop there. Except, of course, there are some matters that are hidden from me.
Very
I
well.
will not be able to decipher now.
I'll comply. If members are with me, we'll go up to 59. Right. Clause 57. I'll survive up to 59.
Clause 57.
Clause 57.
Amendment proposed. Subclause 1, line 3. Delete lawful. Then the new rendition will be a right of re-entry of a feature under the provision in a lease for a breach of a covenant, condition, or agreement in the lease is not enforceable by court action or any other means.
As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now, clause 57, as amended, shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 57, as amended, is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 58.
Relief against forfeiture.
Clause 58. Amendment proposed. Add the following new subclause. At 6, the provisions of section 57, and in this section shall, with the necessary modifications, apply to an oral grant. 58.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there was a minor correction in 57C. I think it escaped the chair. It has to do with 57(1)C, line 2. The last word. I think we call for the deletion of the word it. And a substitution, I think, with breach. If the breach.
Yes, what word did you substitute it with?
The breach, Mr. Speaker.
If the breach.
Yes.
Very well. The breach. All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Yes, Leader.
And Speaker, finally line 4C, the breach then should read that breach.
Very well, the draft persons will effect those corrections. So I'll put a question on clause 57 again, and the question is that clause 57 as amended shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 57 as amended is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 58 again.
Relief against.
Amendment proposed. Chairman.
Amendment proposed. Clause 58. Add the following new subclause. 6. The provisions in section 57 and in this section shall, with the necessary modifications, apply to an oral grant and any other transfer of an interest in land under customary law.
All in favor of the proposed new clause say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Now, clause 58 shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 58, as amended, is ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 59.
Covenant to repair.
Chairman, the moment.
Clause 59. Amendment proposed. Subclause 1. Line 5. Delete and whether. So the new rendition will be damages or compensations for a breach of a covenant or an agreement to keep or put premises in a good state of repair during the currency of a lease, or to leave or put premises in a good state of repair at the termination of the lease, whether the covenant or agreement is express or implied, general or specific.
All in favor of the proposed amendment say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Item XXXIX. Chairman.
Clause 59, subclause 1, line 6. After reversion, insert in the premises and delete seen further in line 6 and 7.
After reversing, insert in the premises. By which the value of the reversing in the premises. That is what it will become.
It's diminished owing to that breach.
Owing to that breach. Very well. Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Mr. Speaker, reversion is reversion. Reversion is the right of the property owner to have the property returned to him. That's reversion. Huh? No, but no, reversion is a term of art. Reversion is a term of art. Yes. So why do you add in the premises? You don't do reversion in the premises. The reversion is the right of the owner to move to have, after the lease has expired, to take ownership of the property. That's reversion. It could be premises, it could be land, it could be anything. Reversion is reversion. Damages or compensation for breach of a covenant or an agreement to keep or put premises in a good state of repair during the currency of a lease, or to leave or put premises in a good state of repair at the termination of the lease, whether the covenant or agreement is express or implied, general or specific, shall not exceed the amount by which the value of the reversion. For what? By which the value of the reversion, whether or not in the premises. Yes, so that's why you put in reversion in the premises again. You cancel the other reversion in the. What? The speaker, the
winnowing team.
The winnowing team is confusing. But Mr. Speaker, no. They are bringing reversion in the premises before whether or not. I'm saying that the formulation, the way it is okay. The reversion, whether immediate or not, in the premises is diminished owing to the breach.
They have proposed a deletion of whether immediate or not in the premises is diminished.
Whether immediate or not. Why?
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my own thinking is that we rather should delete the phrase whether immediate or not. And if we deleted that, then in the premises would also follow. Yeah. After reversion. After reversion, it's the same.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
But I think that the use of the words whether immediate or not is. So we need to delete that.
That is deleted, and then you come to the same conclusion.
It comes to the same thing. So we don't need to insert in the premises, but leave it as it is, and it's the same thing.
Yes. So as many as are in favor of the proposed amendment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Another question is clause 59 as variously amended. Shall stand part of the bill. All in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 59 as variously amended shall stand part of the bill. Now I think I can bring the consideration to a close for today. So that brings us to the end of consideration of the Land Bill 2019 for today. On that note, the House is adjourned till Wednesday, July 8th, 2020, at 10 o'clock in the forenoon.